The question that is asked, Dear Anon I, once I become awakened, will I ever be depressed anymore? Can you please give your thoughts on it? Well, the first thing that you have to understand is you cannot think of becoming awakened as a future endeavor or goal, as though the grass is greener on the other side and you are somehow separate and disconnected from your true self. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter where you go in life, there will be zero distance between you and the divine. You're already God, pure consciousness. You may have taken your focus in this ego trip or dream away from the self, but that does not change the fundamental reality. Let that be known first. So when you say in your question, once you become awakened, will you be depressed? Depression is just a concept that you have added to your I am presence. And every label, every story that you add to yourself is not who you are. When consciousness paints a portrait of itself by associating with the story that I am depressed, I am sad, I am hurt, this story that gets constantly reinforced and reenacted, this false idea, which is a myth, attaches itself to the I amness. When this happens and it's locked in, and now the configuration is on a lower vibrational frequency, then we fall into that sunken state where our energy becomes more heavy, constricted. We no longer feel a sense of freedom because we're so overwhelmed and bombarded with negative thinking. These thought loops that consciousness momentarily gets stuck in. And this is how you become poisoned by your sense of personhood. You become corrupted. But not you as the true self, as you're focused. Your mind has been hacked. When consciousness becomes seduced by the mind and you become mind-possessed, instead of being on the vertical plane of consciousness when you realize that you are indestructible, pure sentience itself, infinite potential, unlimited possibilities. When you decide to focus on a particular thing, as the observer effect would tell you, then all of a sudden that thing becomes, instead of a wave, a particle. Then it means out of infinite choices, you reduced something in which you believe to be who you are, which is your center of focus, as to be that particle. You collapse into a I me story. And that story is on the horizontal plane. It's on a linear timeline. And it gives you a false continuity of the self. You think that you're the sum total of all your past choices. You are caught in linear time, and that is dream time. Dream time is that you believe yourself to be the narrative that your mind has given you. Awakening is instant, and you have to go behind, not in front of what consciousness perceives, to understand this truth. Because you were there before depression, sadness, or misery. These came afterwards. Who you are was prior to all of these modes of personhood that you became completely absorbed in. Start with just I am. And that is the Alpha and the Omega. It's the first and the last, which means that everything in between are all the comings and goings. What remains centered and unmoved is the self. What is always in constant flux, that is impermanent, are all the thoughts that we have attributed ourselves to through the power of belief in these ideas that we hold on to. Beliefs don't have power in and of themselves. We breathe life into it based on our focus. We believe them into existence. And it strengthens our sense of individuality. And this is how ego consciousness gets formed. You have to decide not to take the sleeping tablet of the mind. You make a decision every day to be so fully immersed in the presence of being, of stillness, of silence, where you're no longer bothered by having your focus deflected into this or that, because they're all just deceptive mind patterns. You could even go as far as saying that the mind is feeling sadness, depressed, or happy, because you made a distinction that it is the mind and not who you are that is caught up within these states, affected by emotions that come into play. When you see yourself as pure awareness, you will have no interest to latch on to these thought patterns and emotional states and sense perceptions as the totality of who you are. See it for what it is. If feelings of sadness come, then these feelings of sadness are that which comes and goes. If feelings of depression come, then these are feelings of depression that comes and goes. Let it pass through you. Just don't over-identify with it. Don't personalize it. They're just transient feelings. How you perceive things affects how you feel about things. If you are still caught up within a certain historicity of your life, your historical self, then it would make sense that you would carry the continuity of that from the past and bring it into the present. It's very important not to allow your mind to storify. The mind is very clever in denying, diverting attention, and wasting time. Anything to move out of the present. So you are not depressed. You are not angry. You are not moody. These are all just feelings, thought patterns, and sensations that are passing through you. That's it. They don't define and confine you. The more you move into non-identification, the more you'll feel connected to your source self. You are not caught up within the trap of the mind. It no longer diverts your focus of attention. It no longer is trying to get you to waste time. You are unmoved. You are centered. You're in the place of beingness. You have the invitation right now to be in the grace of this moment. There's no need to even fight depression when you realize that depression belongs to the fictional character. Who you are is beyond sadness or happiness. You are just in the space of pure being. So let go of the person. Remain in the stillness and the serenity now. Mind attacks will happen. You're always going to have adversarial forces. They're going to try to keep you unconscious. In other words, it's going to try to deflect or divert your attention away from present moment awareness. Do not strive to be as someone. This is how you stop getting in your own way. You don't need to entangle yourself more in the web of the little I. Once you embrace your true nature, then you will recognize that your I am is enough. When you believe you need to add something to your I am happy, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm miserable, I'm smart. These are all things that we add on to the small I am, the person. But the great I am transcends personhood. This is what it means by God is one, or oneness. It's so whole, complete, and fully integrated that there's no need to add any concepts onto it. All we have to do is abide within the stillness and stop suffering the person. So you move from personhood to nobodiness, where you have no name, no address, no story. I hope this in some way helps.